before I jump into the first video, I just want to give a background, I guess kind of my resume until I got into this trade. So in 97, as I mentioned in the previous video, my introduction video, was that I got into the drywall union right out of high school, Drywall Finishers Union. It was a 3-year apprenticeship that I started in Local 775 in Riverside, California. Later on, moving over to Local 1136, District Council 36 out of Monterey Park in California. It was a 3-year apprenticeship. Didn't really learn too much at the school except messing around with a bunch of other knuckleheads. But most of the learning was on the trade, on the job. And I always wanted to be a company man, which means is that when you get in as a cub or first year apprentice, first stage apprentice, you turn out with that company to a journeyman, become a foreman, and then you just retire with that same company. Well, fortunately, unfortunately, that never happened with me. I was with so many companies in a year that my tax person would always ask, how many W-2s this year, Anthony? Kind of became like a joke. But in that, I learned from a lot of different guys. Some companies taught me how to do the texturing. Some companies taught me how to do masking off. Some company taught me better how to do tools. Some companies taught me how to do handwork. And with that, I would pick different guys that I would see that they did something different, but I liked the outcome of what they were doing. And so I'd ask them, why are you doing it that way instead of this way? And they would explain it. And I just kind of took that on. And so being what I've seen with tradespersons that had maybe one mentor, one teacher, a foreman, a dad, an uncle, somebody that taught them, what I've seen is that their strengths are the same strengths as their mentor. Their weaknesses are the same weaknesses as their mentor, which, you know, you can't adapt because you only know one way of doing it. But because I kind of took from different persons that were in the trades at the time, and many of these guys have passed on, they've retired. I mean, we're now in that situation. The guys that I went to the apprenticeship school with are now teaching the younger generations or the younger persons that are coming in, the next generation to come up in these trades. And it's our responsibility to teach them right. That's why I want to do this series. There was a cartoon I liked when I watched growing up called Voltron, and it was kind of like some superheroes. They weren't really superheroes, but they were superheroes, and they all had their individual vehicles, which were like these lions or tigers or something. But when they had to fight this big adversary, they would all jump into their individual cars, and they became one big robot machine, right? A Voltron. And that's kind of how I look at the way that I was produced and being a drywall finisher. I took the best from everybody that I seen, and it made me to where I'm at today. Now, I run my own company. It's a small company. I can scale up if I want, but I'm where I'm at for the time being. And it's basically just doing small commercial and residential repairs. In my lifetime, what I've done, my first job was at the Science Museum, right next door to the Natural History Museum and Exposition Park there in Southern California. I went on to do skyscrapers. I think the highest skyscraper that I've done was 40 stories. I made it to the 38th floor before I got laid off, which is pretty cool. I've done a lot of police stations, fire departments, K through 12 schools. I've done junior colleges, USC, some other colleges. I've done numerous hospitals, worked for Kaiser Permanente for a while. You know, ran the gamut. I've done downtown Disney. We did Rainforest Cafe. I worked at the Aquarium of the Pacific there in Long Beach. I think to date, my favorite job that I got to work on was back in the early 2000s, was the Rugrats studio when that cartoon was out. All the artists, instead of having cubicles or having their own offices, they had these really weird shaped units that they would work out of. And it was almost like being in a cartoon. It was so cool to work on that project. Most of my career was in the commercial aspect or commercial industry. And on my side jobs is when I started really working on residential or wood stick buildings. And when I started working for generals, I would do a lot of, you know, residential. And then being right now, I'd say 50-50 here in Texas, 50% is commercial, 50% is residential work. I do commercial work for a town out here, a city as a subcontractor. But it's not build up. It's just a lot of renovation and remodels. So it's about a 50-50 on that. Like I say, smaller commercial, but that means it's in a commercial aspect, but just not built up like you would see in towers. So anyways, that's kind of my history. There's a lot of platforms. There's a lot of creators out there. There's not a right or wrong, I could say. But I like to contrast it to, there's a cooking show out there where each of these chefs get a basket, and in the basket they all have the same exact ingredients, which are kind of gross sometimes. And the outcome is they all perform different. They all come up with this different kind of dinner or dessert or whatever that part of the show was. Anyways, what I'm saying is there's not one way to learn this. you know, there is a wrong way. There are some people that I'm not sure how they're teaching or who taught them, but there is a wrong way to teach it. And I'm not saying mine is the best or the right way. I'm saying mine's the way that's made me money for the past 27 years. Now, I'm constantly learning. I work for some contractors right now that are 75 and 65. I'm sorry, 65 and 70. And I'm learning stuff from them that I've never learned before, you know? And I've learned stuff from guys, like I said, throughout my whole career where I pick things up. I'm picking things up. And as new technology comes out, new tools come out, new products come out, I'm constantly learning and adapting whether I want to take that in or I don't. Is it necessary? Is it not necessary? But that's what I'm going to bring to this channel. That's what I'm going to bring to this series here in my teaching. So by all means, keep learning, not just from me, but from other creators, other content people. And hopefully give me your feedback. You know, if there's a better way that you can do something that I'm showing you, or there's something that I can learn, by all means, put that in the comments. Again, like, subscribe, follow, share, hit the notification button. I hope you guys enjoy. Let's get into it.